Hello, UCLA Radio. This is Dr. No, and we are about to hear my interview with James Bovard, author of Lost Rights, The Fair Trade Fraud, The Bush Betrayal, and Attention Deficit Democracy. His most recent book is Public Policy Hooligan, available in ebook format. So, without further ado, here is our interview, brought to you by The Bloop and UCLARadio.com. All right. So first off, I just want to thank you for joining us because you are. I can't say I've read all your work, but you are rapidly becoming one of my favorite writers. Like I read several.
Well, thanks. That's very kind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read two of your books, several of your articles, and some of your blog posts as well. And I think it's safe to say that you have a passion for writing. And have you always had a passion for writing?
Well, since I was 18. Which I guess goes back a ways at this point. But there's a certain joy in trying to take an idea and express it very clearly, and in a way that resonates with people, that drives home the idea and that breaks through the complacency people often have to taking a different perspective on public policy.
I see. And when did you first start getting interested in public policy?
Oh, I guess in the early 1970s. I was a high school student. I was wheeling and dealing in rare coins and buying a little bit of gold and silver, not a great amount. Mm-hmm. But I was watching how the Nixon administration was wrecking the U.S. economy. They took the U.S. off the gold standard, took the dollar off the gold standard. They imposed wage and price controls. And there just seemed to be so many different vicious things the U.S. government was doing that was hobbling the economy. And then at the same time, the Vietnam War was coming to an end, and the government just looked so venal in so many different ways, and that kind of shaped my views as I was coming of age in my late teens.
I see. Yeah, and you have some interesting views. You were in the parlance, I would say of I guess the more the less politically active. You are conservative on fiscal issues, but so liberal on foreign policy and civil liberties and stuff like that. Would you would you care to explain your stance to our listeners who might be being exposed to you for the first time?
Sure. Well, basically, I'm skeptical of government power across the board. There's a bunch of liars in both the Republicans and the Democrats. Mm-hmm. The last three presidents attest to that. And so I think it's a mistake to give deference to the rulers in general, and that people in a free society have to always be skeptical any time a politician is trying to grab more power over them.
I see. Yeah, so you are more on the libertarian right, and I guess what you might call the I don't know, some of the more traditional left, like Hunter S. Thompson and Howard Zinn.
Oh yeah, Hunter S. Thompson's great.
He was fantastic. Another of my favorite writers.
I guess that means that you enjoy guns.
Well, I haven't had much experience with them. One time I went to a shooting range, and I almost blacked out because there's a policeman there, and he let me use his gun. But I wouldn't mind but I wouldn't mind getting into them at some point when I get some money after I graduate.
Yeah, well, I think it'd be difficult to be into guns as much as Hunter S. Thompson was.
Oh,
He was pretty much of a maniac on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just I'm bad enough as it is at sports, and I can't, it'll be a real undertaking for me to do that. But I do appreciate his writing a lot. I can appreciate that. And I won't black out.
He's someone who had a wonderful, skeptical, if not cynical attitude towards the government, and he was mostly correct.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. Sometimes, it's almost surprising that he's lumped in with the left wing because he is so skeptical of government and he likes guns. It's just really interesting how much times have changed since he was writing.
Yeah, it's funny how the definitions have shifted over time, and how issues that were important in the 1970s are no longer important, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's too bad Hunter S. Thompson's not still around, because
Yeah, like, I mean, it would be... I really would like to see what he would have thought of the Obama administration, you know? Just, like, really, I'm like, wow, it'd be really cool, like, just see what he would write, you know? And, like, I mean, although I remember he did support Bill Clinton initially during the 90s, just to keep George H. Bush out of the office, but then he regretted it, so, yeah.
Understandably. It's kind of like H.L. Mencken initially supported Franklin Roosevelt.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yep. Mencken voted for Roosevelt in 1932.
Oh, my goodness. I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, well, he was... I think he had hopes from the Democrats because I think he naturally leaned towards the Democratic Party, but it was more the Democratic Party of Grover Cleveland.
I see. Yeah, and like that was a time when the Democrats were, guess less enthusiastic about government and and even anti-imperialistic too, wasn't it? Like you had
Yes, yeah, there were a number of elements of the Democratic Party that were very, very positive. I think a lot of the Democrats opposed McKinley's Spanish-American War, the seizure of the Philippines, the brutal massacres of the Filipinos that the U.S. committed in the early 1900s. I think that the Republicans were more enthusiastic on World War I, and there were a lot of things. And on tariffs, Democrats were far better prior to the New Deal.
Huh. Yeah, what's it called? In fact, I think Woodrow Wilson, he was a progressive, but he was also a free trader, and I always thought that was interesting. Is that, or at least that's what I've heard, is there any truth to that?
I don't recall Wilson's attitude on trade. He was probably better than many folks out there, but there were so many other things which Wilson did that were so horrendous, and so to see for growth of government power for the rest of the century, his trade standards don't really matter that much. Well, I mean, it would have been nice as far as free trade if he kept the U.S. out of the damn World War I.
Yeah,
because that's like the ultimate trade embargo.
Yeah, I could imagine that would do wonders for what's it called, the nations involved. You know, just instead of killing each other, just trading. Yeah. Oh,
it would save a lot of paperwork.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And veterans' pensions.
And lives too. Not to mention that.
Yeah.
And speaking of free trade, one of your earliest books was about trade, and it was called The Fair Trade Fraud. And what was the this came out like in the late 80s or early 90s, and what was the thesis of it?
It came out in 1991. This was at a time when folks like Pat Buchanan and others were calling, saying that the U.S. had to become far more protectionist, that we basically had to close our harbors to foreign goods far more than what we were already doing, and that having high tariffs would make us prosper again. Happily, Pat Buchanan and the protectionists got shot down, but what I tried to do in that book was walk people through to make them realize that the U.S. already had a great number of trade barriers, and that the trade barriers we had usually made little or no sense. One of the things which I was trying to get on that was a copy of the U.S. tariff code, because there were a lot of tariffs which were listed as in kilograms or dozens or quantity numbers and not percentage numbers. And I had the hunch that those ones that were not listed as percentile tariffs were actually the highest tariffs. So I contacted federal agencies. I tried to get this information. I followed the rules, and everybody told me it didn't exist. So I was doing a trip over in Europe, and I stopped by Geneva, Switzerland, and I went to the headquarters of the GATT, the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, and which was the group that was overseeing the international trade talks at that point. And I was interviewing some people there for that Fair Trade Fraud book. And as I was leaving, I was walking down the long hallway, and I was passing by an office that had the label Office of Tariff Affairs, and there, right in front of that building, in front of that office, was this cardboard table with this stack of thick documents. And as I was walking past, I glanced down and saw that it was a secret proposal by the U.S. government on their tariffs. And I said, oh. So I didn't even stop walking. I just snatched one up, put it in my shoulder bag, and kept on going. And once I got out of the building, I checked it and realized that these were the secret numbers that I was looking for. And the tariffs were as high as 450%.
Oh, wow.
And they were far higher than what the U.S. government had admitted. So I was able to use some of those numbers to really embarrass the protectionists of the U.S. government and Congress.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. And what do you feel that these numbers, like your exposure to these numbers, like had any they shifted the debate about trade significantly? Because I mean, you don't hear about trade anymore, really, do you?
I don't know if it shifted the debate, but it was sure as hell fun to embarrass the government. And it was because so many of the politicians the politician would insist that the U.S. was being victimized by its free trade policy. And my attitude was that was complete BS because we didn't have free trade. And so that helped me shoot down some of their claims, and it kind of spiced up some of the trade debate. And things have gotten better over the last 20 years as far as trade policy. It's rare to hear people that are as overtly protectionist, though it's kind of bounced back some of the notion of fair trade on coffee and things like that. And people who advocate that, I always ask, so what is the tariff which we should have for this product or that product? And people rarely have a good answer on that. And what they say is, well, just trust the government. That's worked out very badly in U.S. history as far as tariff policy.
I see. And in fact, you criticize Bill Clinton, and I haven't read the Bush betrayal, but I assume you criticize him on this front too for increasing protectionist policies. And do you feel that there's basically a agreement by both parties that protectionism is, I guess, some ideal for them, at least for their purposes?
I don't know if it's probably not an agreement in principle, but it's more an agreement in profit.
I see.
Because the industries that get trade barriers tend to pay benefits to politicians, and politicians like money, so it helps them build their power. So that's the background for a lot of the highest trade barriers the U.S. government still has. It doesn't make any economic sense, and what's fun at times is to argue with liberals, who many of whom have a faith in government policy making. And if you try to say, well, is there a reason why the U.S. today should have a tariff on peanut butter that's basically 130% of the value of peanut butter coming in from most places in the world? It makes no sense to have a very high tariff on a food item that's a staple of low-income people and freelance writers.
Yeah, what's it called? And it's interesting because a lot of the people who are protectionists, they oppose. I mean, therefore immigration reform. You know, they're just like they want foreign labor to come in, but they don't want us to benefit from foreign labor that much. You know, it's interesting.
Yes. I mean, it's hypocritical, but for some people, it's not a question of hypocrisy. It's just that they've never sat down and added two and two together. I mean, it's folks who want to open the borders to foreign workers, but not to foreign goods. And there's a contradiction there that. Well, it's typical of contemporary politics because it tends to be full of contradictions. So.
I see. Yeah, you gotta try to please everybody, so you end up just alienating everybody, I guess. And
well, to a degree, I mean, it's just but politicians so often have not thought through what they're trying to do, and they think that they can grandstand or have a few phrases or have a couple of photo ops, and that's all they need. And that's part of the reason why most of the federal policy is not good for the country.
I see. Yeah, I mentioned this just a couple seconds ago. You wrote two books critical of the U.S. presidents, Feeling Your Pain about the Clinton administration, and The Bush Betrayal about George W. Bush. And it's what inspired you to write these two particular books? Like, I mean, I could imagine why you're opposed to the policies of both presidents, but I'm just curious, what was the specific impetus for writing these two?
Well, for Feeling Your Pain, I started writing that in 1999. I've done a lot of articles for newspapers and magazines on the Clinton administration's policies from 1993 onwards. And I was frustrated because it seemed like folks were not really recognizing the broader pattern of abuse of power here. Certainly for a lot of Republicans, once the Monica Lewinsky scandal erupted, their opposition to Clinton seemed to turn into a giant panty raid, and they didn't seem to get past the idea that the president had sex in the Oval Office. So yeah, okay, I can see why folks would get riled by that, but his policies were far more damaging to the U.S. than his sex life. And so I was trying to put the focus on what Bill Clinton did, and it wasn't so much of an issue of his character. It was more a question of trying to help people understand the precedents that the Clinton administration set, because those were basically building blocks for the next president to seize even more power.
I see. Yeah, and so basically you were trying to get people to see the bigger picture of the Clinton administration, it's conduct at Waco and the war on Yugoslavia, like that, and I think.
Yep, very much. And there was a line I had on a chapter of Feeling Your Pain. Clinton expanded and addicted potential of the U.S. presidency. If memory serves, in some of the book reviews on that book, he had dictatorial potential, but his actual policy graph. Then you've got George W. Bush after 9/11. The dictatorial presidency. He was power and trampling the Constitution, right, and acting like he had been giving it from God.
Yeah, and did you feel that there was a lot of I guess people there was a lot of disconnect among some readers who saw that you had written a book about Bill Clinton, but now you're writing a critical book about George Bush? Like, a lot of people were a bit baffled by that.
Well, that's one phrase for it. Yes, you could say that. There was the publisher of the Bush, published for both books, but the Palgrave St. Martin's did an advertisement, I think, on Google in 2004 when the Bush betrayal came out, and it was a pop-up on the screen. It wasn't targeted to people that were coming to the website, and there was a place for people to comment on the book or to offer their reaction to the book or the advertising. And a lively people, bastards, people saying that it'd be good if I was dead, and there were lots of folks who attacked me for being a liberal who would never criticize Bill Clinton. And now I'm thinking, I guess you can't do a Google search on this. But it was such lively stuff that I pulled together at internet. Bush supporters vindicate the president, and it was the collection of some of the most overheated comments from those generated on that web. The thing that was really great was that when people posted comments, it was so let's just say some of the folks who had done well with check their spelling.
I see. Yeah, and can we expect a book on the Obama administration anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm working on one now.
Oh, really?
How soon? I don't know, but maybe not 7-8 months, and they're very nice. Once again, it's taking my faith in government.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I gotta say, I'm looking forward to it, because, it's called your books. One thing about your books is they're just so, meticulously footnoted. You document everything, so there's, there is no, loose ends, and you just, back everything up. So I'm really interested in what you're going to write about the Obama administration. Yeah.
There's one thing that I had expected a global liberties so doing so far. You would have thought that a lot of things like the state secrets policy, like the NSA spying, like the torture policy. You would think that these would be automatic, but no, he hasn't done that. The one good thing about Obama to John war with Russia is John McCain in 2000, sometimes in 2012, seemed to like this saber rallying against the Russians, and I'm thinking like, no, you don't do that because we've got nuclear weapons. It might be a bastard on our problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. I'm sure Putin is not a good guy, but I mean, I don't know if nuclear war is the appropriate reaction to that. To his.
To have U.S. boots on the ground there in the Ukraine, and I'm thinking, for what? I mean, how many boots are we going to put? 2 million boots? I mean, otherwise, it's just simply, something to drag us further into a conflict. It's sad. It's sad to see the conflict there. I hope they can resolve it, but we have no magic wand. And if you look at how things turned out in Yugoslavia and Kosovo, that place turned to crap after we bombed them. It wasn't doing well before. It did worse afterwards. The same with Iraq. And Syria, just take a look at Libya, for God's sake. To see, I was amazed. I was disappointed that Obama chose to bomb Libya. That for no good.
Yeah, what's it called? I remember when I first heard we were bombing Libya. It was like that was the moment I knew when I was like, nothing has changed. I was like, this is meet the new boss, same as the old boss. That was that moment for me.
Yeah. It was very disappointing. The fallen situation, and the stuff in Libya is it's still a Pandora's box, and we don't know how much more crap is going to come out of there.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk of boots on the ground again. This time as peacekeepers. Like remember they said during the war they're like, oh, we're not going to send boots on the ground. This isn't a war. But now we're talking about that, so yeah.
Well, and there's not any peace there to keep. It's a mess. I mean, it was a mess before the U.S. intervened. I think it's a lot worse now. I wish the people there well. I hope they can find a way to live and to tolerate each other, killing each other as much as they do. But we don't have a magic wand here. But there's that pretense. It was the same with President Obama gave on the set first, and I happened to be in downtown D.C. and for some other stuff, and ended up going to the demonstration right now. And very hard left. They're also very demonstrated. And they were out there, they had great signs, they were chanting, and I was told that during the president's address that people expect that the missiles of all, instead he basically people could hear the chanting from the crowd outside. At least National Park Service horses coming in and breaking up the demonstration.
Wow.
For no reason, of course, but this is what the Park Service does against demonstrators.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was crazy for like a week. It seemed like we were about to bomb Syria, and God knows where it would have gone there. Just for like a week, it seemed like that was imminent. And then,
yeah, it was very frustrating. I had a piece in USA Today, scowling at the bombing in Syria. I mean, I don't like the Syrian government, but there's no reason to get involved. And if you look at the many of the groups opposing the Syrian government, they're the same groups that were some of the most brutal terrorist groups in the world. And why in hell the U.S. would want to intervene on their side and basically empower them? It makes no sense at all. Except there's a lot of weird stuff going on in American politics as far as some of those foreign interventions.
Yeah, seems like there's always something going on with American interventions. It's just like it's never what it said, just what it says it is.
Yeah, and that's a frustrating thing writing about foreign policy. And I didn't write much about foreign policy prior to the Kosovo War in 1999 because it just struck me as a pack of lies.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the U.S. government, but a lot of foreign governments as well. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to make sense of something, and you're trying to get a beat on it, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, it turns out, everything that we said last year about this country, it was false. It was actually this and this and this. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking, why the hell should I bother investigating and trying to nail it down? But things changed after 9/11 because the foreign policy became the source of some of the biggest threats against our freedom.
Yeah. I remember during the Bush administration, like it was foreign policy was very contentious. Like if you didn't support the war in Iraq or the war in Afghanistan, you were a terrorist or whatever, stuff like that. I remember that. And then I still kind of go ahead. Sorry.
No, please.
I was gonna say, and like today, now there are like echoes of that. You hear if you don't support drone strikes, you're a terrorist or whatever, and you hear it from left wing people too. So it's really even weirder.
Yeah, it's disappointing because I went to a lot of the anti-war demonstrations during the Bush administration, and there were the rank and file there were mostly left wing. There were some conservatives there. There were some libertarians, but the bulk of the folks were left wing and some very hard left. Mm-hmm. And some of those left wing groups, like the Answer Coalition, is still out there, and it was in the forefront of opposing war against Syria or Iran or other places. But by and large, things got real quiet after Obama became president.
Yeah, strange, huh?
Well, it's a paradox, but it's sad because it would be great if he was feeling a lot more heat from his core supporters about some of his violations of the things he said in his first presidential campaign, as far as foreign policy and civil liberties and having respect for the Constitution.
If he did that stuff, I'd be all for him. I think a lot of people would, but just like he's not. It's not. We don't just irrationally hate the president. It's just like he's doing bad stuff. Yeah.
Well, and there was a set of principles which he basically promised, and very few of those have survived his term in office thus far.
Yeah, it's just like and you even kind of saw that with George Bush when he first was elected, because if I don't know if most of my listeners remember this, but he actually campaigned on a humble foreign policy, and he supported the bombing of Yugoslavia, but he opposed the peacekeeping afterwards, and he spoke out against nation building. So I don't know, it's just really it's a strange thing to see from Bush after 8 years of him,
Yeah, well, it was interesting in his debates with Al Gore in 2000. The best phrase he had was something that America needs a more humble foreign policy, and that was so encouraging because he was absolutely right. It made no sense for the U.S. to try to be dominating the world, and this whole notion of a new world order, which is a phrase that his father used first, and then Clinton acted like it was his mandate. It was working out very badly in many places. And so you would have thought that Bush would pull back from that, but a lot of the people that he staffed his administration with, people like Dick Cheney and Paul Wolfowitz, these are folks who are just die-hard interventionists who dodge military service themselves.
Yeah. I remember those guys, yeah. And we didn't serve or anything. Yeah. But
they were dark times. They were very dark times.
Yeah, I remember. I was like, maybe a little over 10 years old when it was happening, but I remember it vividly. Yeah. Oh, if I could revisit civil liberties in one of your first book I read, Lost Rights. I mean, this is like it's just an amazing book. It's just like it documents like so many like egregious cases of like government overreach. That's what it's called. It's just like in every realm. It's like almost every realm there's like some kind of mischief going on. Just like I don't know which department it was, but a department like cracking down on like Vietnamese citizens who sent food back to their parents in Vietnam and getting tried under the enemy, trading with the Enemy Act or whatever. Just like nonsensical stuff like this. It's just like, I mean, how did you how did you go about deciding how you would document each kind of violate civil liberty violation? You know, it's just so huge. Whatever.
Well, the thing that I was aspiring to do with Lost Rights was to wake people up to how the government had far more arbitrary power across the board. And it wasn't simply a question of the war on drugs. It wasn't simply a question of asset forfeiture or government regulation on business, but it was endemic. And I was trying to wake people up to the peril that government power and politicians pose to them in every part of their lives, and to make people recognize that the only way to safeguard their rights and liberty was to have a government that was far less powerful. There was a chapter in there on how daily life was being criminalized, and I made sure that I had the section on guns right next to the section on drugs, because there were a lot of people who would agree with me on drugs who would be horrified at my views on guns, and vice versa. But I was trying to find a way to help liberals and conservatives recognize that the guns and the drugs were not completely separate issues, and that the part of the bad thing about the war on drugs was it was causing a lot more violent crime, which some politicians were using to try to justify taking away guns.
I see. Yeah.
And there were. I was building on some of the investigative work I'd done over the previous 7 or 8 years, and then I did a shitload of fresh digging for that book. And then I had a really good editor, Simon Winder, a British guy at St. Martin's on that, and it was nice to have an editor with courage who wasn't flinching and saying, well, people might be offended by this. No. They just, it was charged forward. They made sure that it was accurate as far as libel purposes, and then they launched. So.
I see. Yeah, and how did you what's it called? I mean, well, it's just interesting because the book doesn't focus on a particular administration. It just it talks about violations under the George H.W. Bush administration and the Clinton administration, and it makes the point that it's not a partisan thing. It's both parties will do it, and I don't know. I just think it's, for that reason alone, it is a very valuable work. And
thanks. That's very kind. I've often been accused of being a partisan, but that's basically if I'm criticizing the current president, I'm assumed to be a partisan of the other party. But what I try to do in Lost Rights and some other books is just kind of it doesn't really matter that much whether it's a Democrat or it's a Republican, because both parties have consistently grabbed far more power than the Constitution permitted, and both of them have been very often dishonest about how that power was used, and they've trampled far more rights than what they've admitted.
Oh my goodness!
And if people can get beyond the notion that this party or the other party is going to save them, that people will become more independent in their political views and recognize they've got to stand up for themselves, and that no one from Washington is going to take care of them.
I see. Yeah, and speaking of because continuing this discussion of civil rights violations, right now in the news there's a lot of controversy over a standoff at the Bundy Ranch between the Bureau of Land Management and rancher Cliven Bundy, and I guess supporters who came to stand up for him. And so it's just what's your take on that right now?
Well, my impression is that the feds have overreached, that they've been attempting to be very domineering. It's worked out very badly. Senator Reid, I think, was saying that the supporters of Bundy were a domestic terrorist, which is a pretty broad class, as well as a dangerous classification to put on people. A large part of the trouble is that the federal government owns 81% of the state of Nevada, and there's no reason for it to own so much of that land. The western states, the federal role is just far too great, and people would have more room to build your own lives if you had less government property out there. And I'm saying that as someone who was raised on federal property on a beef cattle research station. So.
I see. Yeah, and are you concerned at all that there might be another repeat of Waco or Ruby Ridge here, or is that that are just...
Well, I mean, that's always the fear when you've got both sides ramping up. I think it'd be a lot more difficult for the government to do the kind of killings that did at Ruby Ridge and Waco now, partly because cell phones with cameras are practically everywhere, and the government realizes that, and so it would not be able to control the narrative like it did in the past. So I think that's limiting the government power a little bit, and I think the FBI learned a little bit from Waco. There was a standoff 3 years after Waco up in Montana with a group called the Freemen, and the FBI came in and surrounded them and basically put them under siege, and it eventually reached a peaceful conclusion. But it was good the FBI didn't go charging and they were shooting at people, or vice versa. So I think you're going to have the same thing work out this time. But I've been wrong before.
Oh. Yeah, and I don't know, and a lot of people obviously do not like Clive and Bundy and his supporters. They say they're like racist or whatever. And do you feel that as like just that those are just scare tactics to demonize Bundy or supporters, or is that maybe there's some truth to them, or just like, or do you think that's all irrelevant to what this represents, that the overreach by the BLM?
Yeah, I think your final point is the one which I would focus on. Yeah, it's not really that relevant. It may be that some of Bundy's supporters have said things in the past that were bad or off color or whatever. But if you look at some of the things that the BLM has done, or the Interior Department has done, they've also been very heavy-handed in the past. But it's not fundamentally a question of the backgrounds of the supporters on either side. The fact is the federal government is controlling far too much land there, and the feds need to disgorge a lot of what they're controlling, because it's symptomatic of federal dominance of American life.
I see. Yeah. One of the more curious points made is that Bundy shouldn't be mad that he's getting his land taken, because the same thing happened to the Native Americans when we first expanded out west, And I mean, I think that's kind of like a strange statement to make, because it's kind of like, okay, since this bad happened in the past, then this bad should be done too, and by the same perpetrator, no less. It's just like, it's curious to me.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to follow the same logic, then they should say the federal government should be allowed to steal everybody's land because it's stolen land from the Indians.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just waiting for people to start quoting General Phil Sheridan. He was the one, I believe, who said that the only good Indian is a dead Indian. Well, maybe the BLM will start saying that about cattle ranchers. Probably not, because most of the BLM people are not that way. But it doesn't make sense to go into the past for these analogies that basically give a license to commit fresh atrocities.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, let's say. And so, yeah, well, I hope that all works out, because I mean, like, it's just, I don't know, it's just, I mean, there is a lot of tension in the country between the different group, the left and the right, so, yeah.
Yeah, and a part of what I've tried to do with some of my writing is to wake up people on both sides that instead of focusing their hostility on each other, that they should look at the government and the arbitrary power that has been built up decade by decade in these federal agencies, because that is the real threat to their rights and freedom. Not whether somebody on the other side of the barricade insults them or makes some comments that are just completely rude or whatever. I mean, the real danger is the power of the federal government, and that's the thing that we have to limit in order to have a rebirth of American freedom.
Okay, I see. Yeah, and I want to talk. Well, I mean, we're going a little bit over time, but that's fine. I mean, I'm not in a rush or anything. But I want to ask about one of your latest books, Attention Deficit Democracy, and I unfortunately have not read that one. But if I'm not mistaken, it's
okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. That's fine.
Sorry, I'm going to get to it someday. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, but fact that you have read at least one or two of my books means that you're a prodigy among radio hosts.
Really?
An absolute prodigy.
But is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like a backhanded compliment?
It's a very good thing because so often hosts are saying, "Okay, so our next book our next guest wrote a book. Let's see what the title is." Oh, and best of all is a host is saying, "Well, yeah, I've got your book here. The cover is red and white," and I think, "Oh, this is going to be a great discussion."
Okay.
We're going to talk about the cover design. So no, but I really appreciate the fact that you read my articles and some of the blog and some of the past writings. So it makes for a much better informed discussion. And I was serious about you being a prodigy in a good way that way.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so attention deficit democracy. If I'm not mistaken, the point you're making is that citizens generally do not I guess they're unwilling, or they just can't. They're incapable of like holding politicians accountable, like to statements they make and like goals they set. Like they're just like overlook any indiscretions and just keep voting them back into office. And so, yeah, is that the case?
Yeah, there are a number of things, systemic things, that undermine political accountability in this country. One of them is that most citizens are not well enough informed to judge the candidates at a federal level and other levels as well. Citizens tend to fall for far too much political BS. But another wrinkle in that attention deficit democracy book was that the congressmen themselves are very often ignorant of what they're doing and grossly negligent. I had a story a couple days ago in the Washington Times that was entitled "Cluster Bomb Congress." And it talked about a law that one sentence in a law that Congress passed in 2008 that the feds have exploited to just bushwhack tens of thousands of Americans and seize their tax returns based for debts that might be decades old that might have been incurred by their deceased parents. But the feds have just ridden roughshod over fair play and due process because of a single sentence in a law long ago. And you have all these thick laws being passed by Congress, 1,000 pages, 800 pages. Congressmen don't bother reading the laws, and there are these provisions in these laws that are like a cluster bomb that are scattered across the landscape, hundreds of different provisions, and then years later people will find themselves bushwhacked or blown to bits by one of these provisions that gives the government all this arbitrary power and that no one recognized.
Oh my goodness, that's insane. So I want to ask, this sounds like it'll be a huge problem in years to come. But I want to ask what issues do you feel are the most pressing right now? Like more specific issues.
Oh Lord, I don't have a good answer for that. Certainly, it's important to avoid new foreign wars.
Oh yeah.
Especially with places like Russia and Iran or Syria. Folks need an accounting of the rights that the federal government is violating right now. It's good. We've thanks to Edward Snowden and Glenn Greenwald, we've learned quite a bit about the federal intrusions by the NSA. There's a lot of other agencies that are trampling our rights as well we haven't learned about. It'd be great to open up the files in these government agencies because I think that would help vaccinate millions of Americans against trust in government. It would be great if the government stopped spending more money than it took in revenue. I'm holding my breath on that one. It'd be great if the government stopped screwing the value of the U.S. dollar. Because the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve, by having a zero interest policy, is basically pillaging the middle class, the people that have savings in this country, and that is one of the greatest injustices that does not get, and that gets hardly any attention. So those are a few things.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's all for today, actually. Yeah, but it's been a real good discussion, Mr. Bovard. So yeah, it was great. Thank you so much for coming on. And
thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for doing the reading ahead of time, and thanks for for being so well prepared.
Thank you thank you very much. The pleasure is, well, it's all mine. I gotta say, it was just like, I mean, you're a phenomenal writer. That's all I can say.
Well, thanks. That's very kind. I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
No, well, I mean, thanks for having me on, and thanks for, it's nice we had time enough to go with the ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to do it at a much better depth than most of the time it happens in commercial radio.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I try to go for that. I try to make sure that we develop on ideas, me and my guest, and so yeah.
Which is neat. So are you a senior? Are you graduating, or?
I'm a senior, actually. This is my last quarter, but I'm going to continue my show after in podcast format. So, yeah, and just to make it up to you, to make up the last 5 minutes or so, you can come on my show whenever again, if you repeat performance and talk again. So, yeah.
Appreciate that. And are you going to be seeking a job at a radio station once you graduate, or what's your battle plan?
Well, ideally I would get to work at a battle station, a radio station afterwards, but I'm probably going to have to work like in some less impressive jobs, retail and all that. But I'm hoping maybe I'll get an internship somewhere. Yeah, so hopefully it works out. But I will continue this in, like I said, I'll continue this in podcast format, this show. So even if I don't get a show again, I can still do this on my own, and just upload it to the internet.
Sounds great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bovard, and just thank you again for coming on. You're great.
Okay. Well, thank you, and all the best to you.
Thank you. All the best to you, too. Have a great day, and good. All right. Oh, wait, let me plug you in. Listeners, this has been James Bovard. He has authored a litany of books, including The Fair Trade Fraud, Lost Rights, The Bush Betrayal, and Attention Deficit Democracy. And his latest book is Public Policy Hooligan. It's been published in ebook format, and you can find that online, and you can find others on eBay or a local bookstore near you. So, thank you, Mr. Bovard, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks so much.
Hey, thank you again. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I'll send you the interview, too.
Okay, great.
Sweet. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.